Hello there, hope you're all well and very welcome back to the segment of Matt's Movies, Music and More that we like to call At the Movies with Andrew. Maybe you would like to call it Andrew at the Movies, but we designed the title card and the logo. It really is At the Movies with Andrew, where I go to the cinema, I see some movies and I tell you all about what I saw there. Apologies if you noticed the change in bedroom surroundings and you missed my personal paraphernalia, but I've got a new next door neighbour arriving soon, and that means I've got builders right outside my bedroom window at the moment. Hopefully soon this will be rectified. In the meantime, I hope this is to your satisfaction. In the meantime, it's hotting up outside and it's hotting up inside the cinema, which means we're into May 2019 and we're well now knee-deep into the summer blockbuster season. More recognisable names and franchise titles are appearing, but just because they're enticing enough for viewers and customers, does that mean that they're necessarily good? Well, that's what I'm hoping to share and discuss with you today. So let's get started with something that I'm sure at least some of you have been waiting for. Yes, this is it. No more fake outs. I've been to see all the other current superhero movies at the cinema and got them out my system. Even Hellboy. So now let's talk about the one movie that everyone has been anticipating, and judging by the box office and the attention and the reviews, the one movie that most people will still be talking about and remembering when we get to the end of 2019. Yes, this is Avengers Endgame, directed by Anthony and Joe Russo, starring Robert Downey Jr., Chris Evans, Chris Hemsworth, Mark Ruffalo, Scarlett Johansson, Josh Brolin, and far too many other people to list off here. Film 22 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe and part 2 of a two-part finale of 11 years worth of build-up of blockbuster superhero movies. And right off the bat, I will say that even though 99% of the planet have already rushed out to see it on day one and given their thoughts about this movie, I will be trying to stay spoiler free and choose my words very carefully for this review. Partly for the 1% that might be watching this video completely blind as to the plot, but also I genuinely honestly feel that most of the enjoyment and fun and satisfaction watching this movie comes from seeing all the plot twists and turns, the direction that this movie takes, and the character developments and payoffs that will spring up out of this movie fresh. So how to sum this up? Well, last time on Avengers, prune-faced alien warlord Thanos used his Chekhov's gauntlet and activated all the Chaos Emeralds. Activated all the Dragon Balls. Activated all the Infinity Stones and achieved his wish of reducing half of all sentient life in the universe into something to grip the path with when it snows. After a considerable amount of time moping and grieving and coming to terms with their loss, and I do mean a considerable amount of time in universe and throughout the first act of this whole movie, a character makes an unexpected return. From this, a discovery is made, and from this, our surviving heroes deduce that maybe, just maybe, if we play this out carefully, we can hatch a plan and perform a cosmic undo on everything and get everyone we love back. But considering that this plan and this journey and adventure spans multiple planets, multiple locations, and the fate of countless billions is resting on their shoulders, don't expect everyone to come out of this movie unscathed. Really, just don't. Right off the bat, I will say, given the epic nature of this movie, this is a 3 hour long film. So please, please, if you're going to see this at the cinema, do the sensible thing and do what I did. Take a toilet break right at the start. Do not bring any drinks. Do not bring any snacks into this, because this movie unfolds at such a brisk pace and a lot happens at quite a breakneck speed, that even if you try to go out and do a turbo piss and come back 20 seconds later, I guarantee you will miss something. And you'll miss quite a lot of action, and the sort of solidly directed action, and the quick fire and satisfying humour that you come to expect from these movies at this point. I mean, right off the top of my head, line of dialogue that made me laugh: "You took everything away from me. I don't know who you are." Stuff like that. Also, without saying, what they do here with Thor and Hulk in the aftermath of the disaster will, no, this sounds odd, will make you smile. Yeah, as the grand finale, I would say also that this is kind of reminiscent of a season finale of a genre TV show, in that plot developments are intertwined and wrapped up, and characters have conversations that all comes to a grand conclusion. So this had better not be your first Marvel Cinematic Universe movie, or a lot of this is who these people are and what they want is probably going to escape you. It probably sounds obvious for most of you, but I'm trying to cover for like the one person that's watching this video 5 years from now, that sort of thing. So, yes, there is humour, there is excitement, and there is action, but I'd also say that it is quite befitting the grand, epic, tragic nature that we get a lot of character payoff here. Relationships are resolved, and characters make grand pronouncements and sacrifices, and a couple of main characters in particular do get the heart-rending yet satisfying payoffs that I feel these characters deserve. I won't say who they are, but if you looked at the news and seen whose contracts are up, I think you can take an educated guess. I'd also say that yeah, as a whole, in comparison to the grand unfolding majestic tragedy of its immediate predecessor, Infinity War, this is what I think Star Trek fans would call, in terms of quality, a best of both worlds scenario. In that part one, we have the Borg making a return after after their perceived threat earlier in the season. They're going to conquer and assimilate Earth. The Enterprise tries to stop them. Oh no, they failed, and now Captain Picard has been turned into a Borg. Oh, this is so unexpected and tragic and exciting. How are they going to follow this up? Tune in a few months later to part two. It can't quite match that, but we can have each and every character give them something to say or do. We can remove the threat to Earth and get Captain Picard out of there and back to normal in a satisfying manner, at least. And I feel that's good. That's a good way to compare and sum up Endgame. Also, again, kind of like Infinity War and other big crossover Marvel movies like this, to have so many characters from different times, different time frames, make a return, and have from different planets and different cultures and different backgrounds, and have them all converse with each other would seem like an impossible task. And yet, once again, Anthony and Joe Russo make it seem effortless. So props there. And of course, with the great big climax, it's not quite Lord of the Rings, but I'd say it's pretty close. It's very brown. There's a lot of splash page imagery where everyone gets to do a heroic pose, but on the flip side of that, I know this is something that I think Matt has pointed out, and I do have to agree with him. There is a point when all the lady female characters are lined up, and it does feel a tiny bit incongruous, as a bit blatant as a statement. especially given one or two of those characters have only just appeared and they haven't as much like dialogue as, say, other people. But apart from that, it's thoroughly exciting and epic ending. On the subject of nitpicks, the second act plan that I alluded to earlier, it's a trope that science fiction fans will be very familiar with, and they even reference that. They reference several movies of this type of thing, and there's like a line of dialogue, Ant-Man, are you seriously suggesting we base our whole plan, are you seriously basing a whole plan based on this movie? And this trope does come with its usual narrative pitfalls, which they do address here, and they do try to say, no, it doesn't quite work like that scientifically. We've worked out the rules, and we've got it all sorted. We know how to do this without screwing anything up. And yet, as the movie goes on, several changes and things happen that do make you go, no, wait, if you take this item now, then it can't be here later. If this character has used up the last of the energy here, then how do these characters turn up? You've killed this character, so this other character can't be here. They can't exist. So stuff like that. It involves at enough of a pace and speed that you don't mind too much. It just sort of comes to you later and feel like you weren't really paying much attention here, were you? But despite these nitpicks, and I may come across as someone who likes to harp on how the Marvel Cinematic Universe has dominated cinema in general in recent years, but I think this movie, this culmination, does represent how much these movies have achieved with an interconnecting grand narrative that has resulted in this much payoff and reward and long-term loyalty. If I were to travel back in time and talk to my father as a young man, I'm sure I'd probably have far more important questions and things to address. But if I told him that the old Flash Gordon, Rocketman, Superman, Saturday morning cinema serials of the mid-20th century, if we had things like that, we have things like that in the 21st century with huge stars and a huge budget, you wouldn't be believed. And yet here we are. So with Endgame, is it a flawless piece of scripting and storytelling? No, not really. But is it a crowd-pleasing, satisfying and emotional and epic payoff to 11 years worth of entertaining blockbuster movies? Yes, certainly. And if this is a level below the high tier of Infinity War, then I would go with a very, very strong buy it. So with this, and with Spider-Man Far From Home in July, and then taking a break and no more Marvel movies until May next year, this does pose an interesting question. If this was the last Marvel movie, would we feel satisfied with that? They may take a break or dial things back a bit and be more experimental, take more risks, or just play it safe and not feel obligated to a grand interconnecting narrative from now on. Will that be enough? Or with the hype that has built all the way up to Endgame, now that that is satisfied, will the superhero movie bubble burst from here? Only time and box office numbers will tell, but I'll be keen to see how that plays out. Also, on the subject of your bladder that I mentioned earlier, I can assure you seriously that there is no post-credit scene. Right, next, after that, I deliberately decided to dial back a bit and go for something more low key and give myself a bit of a rest with Tolkien, or Tolkien. They make a joke about that pronunciation in the movie itself. Directed by Dome Karukowski. He's Finnish. A movie starring Nicholas Hoult, Lily Collins, and Derek Jacobi, amongst others. And this is a biopic about the life of J.R.R. Tolkien. From his childhood in Worcestershire to his upbringing in Birmingham to his academic education in Oxford, through to his service as a soldier in the First World War, right up to the very moment at the end of the movie when he starts writing The Hobbit. Um, yeah, as a biopic of The Lord of the Rings, it goes full pelt into this in terms of references aplenty. I mean, they are in your face. Tolkien joins up with some fellow boys at his school, and they do talk very early on about how we're an alliance, a brotherhood, a group, and you're just waiting for Tolkien to utter the fabled F word. No, not that F, you dirty-minded people. And it does take a while for it to get there, but it is a great big, oh, yes, he said it. And when he's courting his girlfriend's future wife, Edith, she wants to go to the opera to see a production of Wagner's Ring Cycle. And one of his friends does turn to him and say, oh, come on, old chap, nobody wants to see a 6 hour long epic about rings. Yeah, it is in your face with the script, but also with Tolkien espousing about the joys of language and the invention of language and how he's made up his own words. It is one of those movies where a British person is a genius, and he's clearly fated right from the off to produce a work of great literature or art or beauty. Almost every other character could turn to him and say, "You one day you will be recognised in history as a genius." It is kind of one of those movies. But on the one hand, the performances are earnest and assured and do carry this off with conviction, at least, with the likes of Lily Collins and his parental figure, his legal guardian. His character's name is Father Francis, but since he's played by Cole Meany, I can't help but think of him as Father Chief O'Brien. So there you go. But especially from the lead, Nicholas Hoult as Tolkien, he is suitably English and stoic and stiff upper lipped. He does carry the range from being lovesick to being intelligent to being feverish in the trenches, so all credit to him. Although the kind of flip side of having somebody big and bulky and adult as him in the part is that there is a scene where Father Chief O'Brien does go to him. "You've been spending too much time with that girl. I forbid you from seeing this, Edith. You need to focus on your studies. When you're 21 years old, you will be free to see her again and do what you like. But until then, I am your legal guardian and I will honour your late mother's wishes." And you look at Nicholas Hoult, his physicality, and you think, look at this guy, he's already at least 21. Yeah, but never mind about that. A good part of what might carry this movie in the memory is Dome Karakowski's cinematography, his direction, his visuals. Yes, the Worcestershire countryside is suitably bucolic and reminiscent of Middle Earth. Birmingham is grimy and odious, and Oxford, the cobbled pavements and hallways and academic halls of Oxford are exactly how you would expect them to be in a movie like this. But particular credit goes to the framing narrative of Tolkien in the First World War trenches, in which he's feverishly carried by a helpful and friendly and determined soldier called Sam. Ha 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 ha. And in his hallucinations, he sees dark riders on horseback carrying the souls of the soldiers in slow motion. He sees, oh, look at those giant flaming things in the sky. Are they dragons? No, they're German soldiers with flamethrowers. Ah, but from what I've read, Don Karakowski loved Tolkien when he was 12 years old. He always wanted to film The Lord of the Rings. He didn't get there, but it does feel like I've now finally got a toehold in this Middle-earth world, and I'm going to make my mark on it, visual mark on it, God damn it. And in those trench sequences especially, I felt like, well done, you've made it. In the end, Tolkien... I've also heard in the news that Tolkien's family, who are notoriously stuffy and antagonistic towards the Lord of the Rings Hobbit movies in general, have said this is fiction. This is not really what J.R.R Tolkien's life was about. And you do feel it is one of those fictionalized, dramatized narratives of exaggerating certain things about this man's life, and maybe it was a bunch of academic conversations and dull family life that wouldn't look good on film, so we have to do a biopic about how extraordinary this man was, and how characters say he's destined to be a genius. You have a unique insight. It is just another flipping one of those kind of movies. But I'd say the earnest, committed performances and the detailed, creative and pretty visuals do elevate this slightly up to a just about a low level watch it. And by that I do mean watch with your grandma or your mother on a dreary Sunday afternoon. But at least if it inspires viewers to go and read the Lord of the Rings books again, or go and watch the movies again, like our good Mr. Karakowski, I'd say that this film has served a purpose. Next up, we have Pokemon Detective Pikachu, directed by Rob Letterman and starring Ryan Reynolds as the titular Pikachu, Justice Smith, Catherine Newton, Ken Watanabe and Bill Nighy. And I'll say right off the bat, as an adaptation of the Pokemon series of anime and games, I'm a Sega fanboy. As such, I do not have any real nostalgic passion or prior commitment to these films. I will say that as a teenager, I did wake up one Saturday morning and caught the last 10 minutes of a cartoon of a cave of Jigglypuffs, and we have to protect the Pokemon, and oh no, Team Rocket is here going to capture the Jigglypuff. Ha 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 ha. Oh, we've stopped now. Let's sing the Pokemon rap and name all the Pokemon. Jigglypuff, Pikachu, Wibblewhip, Squirtle, Flarnax, Whizzlewhip, Blurty, Blurp, Blurp, Blurp. And I've thought, even by Saturday morning cheesy kids anime standards, what the hell am I even watching? Am I still asleep? So, I'm one of those people. This film had to please, as well as please fans, it had to please Pokemon fans, like the friends I went to see this movie with, and kids and adults alike. So that's quite the juggling act to perform. But very quickly, the premise: in the world of Pokemon, and I will give the film credit, it's in the Pokemon world. As a video game adaptation, it could have easily gone the route of these wacky characters go through a portal into the normal, relatable world, or vice versa, and they don't. This is in the world where Pokemon and capturing Pokemon to train them to fight have existed alongside humans since caveman times. Deal with it. Tim, a former Pokemon trainer turned a salesman, is forced to go to Rhyme City, a city where Pokemon and humans coexist with each other and are not required to fight. but there is an underground black market for that, because there's always an underground black market for something, in order to investigate or just deal with the procedure of his estranged father, who is missing, presumed dead. And whilst looking through his apartment, he comes across his father's pet, Pikachu, wearing a cute little deerstalker hat. But whereas Pokemon tend to make noises or repeat their name, Pikachu, this Pokemon speaks fluent English, and only Tim can hear this, and he sounds exactly like Ryan Reynolds. He's lost his memory. He says, "I'm a detective. You can help me find my memories. I can help you find your father. Let's go investigate." And Tim reluctantly goes along with this, and cue adventure. So yeah, in a nutshell, this is basically Who Framed Roger Rabbit with Pokemon. I wouldn't say it quite reaches the heights of that lofty, well written, flawless classic, but that doesn't mean it doesn't do a damn good attempt to try. Particularly with this world, which is half Zootopia and half neon lit Blade Runner. So an interesting mix, and yet somehow it works. And particular credit to the director for not using a lot of green screen and filming on film, and having these CGI computer animated Pokemon brought to with realistic, fluffy, furry, scaly textures. Running around in this world is probably the highlight of the film. Probably for long-time fans, seeing, you know, Squirtles and Jigglypuffs and what have you running around convincingly. But also, it's engaging enough for newbies like me to see this and it to be convincing to the eye. Also, a big strength of what carries this film is Ryan Reynolds himself. Yes, he is basically playing a family-friendly version of Deadpool, Peekapool, or Deadchew, if you like. He usually runs around in the background making snarky comments like, "Ooh, that's a twist, that's very twisty. Ooh, where's my coffee? Ooh, Tim, talk to that girl about the clue. Ooh, Tim, you don't know much about talking to girls, do you? Ooh, I'm not addicted to coffee. I could quit at any time. These are choices." But at least it stays on the right side of irritating, if you get what I mean. And certainly with him and the Pokemon in general, they stand out. And the human actors suffer a little bit in comparison, though I feel that's largely down to the script. I mean, Justice Smith as Tim, he does at least have an arc, a character arc of coming to terms with his father and making peace with his father and befriending the initially annoying Pikachu. But even then, I'd say it's only a level above what he was doing in Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, which was basically Shaggy from Scooby-Doo. Like, "Oh no, the lava's coming. Oh no, the scary dinosaurs are coming. I don't know if I can handle this. I'll do it for a Scooby snack." Yeah. So humans a bit, and the plot itself, the detective mystery plot, is really just exposition info dumps every 20 minutes. Like they'll discover a honking big clue, and that will be their cue to go, "Let's go to this location," and so on and so forth. And twists. There's a slimy, selfish guy who we think is going to be the villain, whilst this other guy's being so helpful and giving us video footage, and clearly he's being nice to us. I wonder how that will play out in a story like this. But in particular, the third act, I mean, I'm new and oblivious to the Pokemon world, and I get that I've seen the first animated Pokemon movie around 1999-ish, so I got what this was a callback to. But seeing this unfold, is this bonkers madness normal in the Pokemon world is kind of getting a bit all over the place, this climax. But that being said, a lot of Pokemon are here that will please long-time fans. Ryan Reynolds sings something that had everybody in the audience laughing. I mean, it was entertaining, and this was an entertaining enough movie for me. But certainly seeing my friends and the big smiles on their faces, I'd say that's the audience that's going to come away from this most satisfied. I compare it to the World of Warcraft movie from a couple of years ago in that regard, in that I did feel like I needed to read a textbook before seeing this movie to know what this world was about. But I do feel like the fans have been catered for with this movie, and they will come out happy with this. I feel like we've come a considerable distance in terms of video game adaptations. So it's not perfect, but it's definitely entertaining enough to give this a very high watch it. So there you go. And as a Sega fanboy, all I've got to look forward to now and have an investment in is the Sonic the Hedgehog movie. Help me. And finally for this month we have Rocketman, directed by Dexter Fletcher, starring Taron Egerton, Jamie Bell, Bryce Dallas Howard and Richard Madden, and based, as the tagline puts it, on a true fantasy on the life and the music of Elton John. Yes, this is Dexter Fletcher, and so I'll try and minimise any Bohemian Rhapsody comparisons where possible, but it's hard not to draw a direct line and parallel between these two jukebox musical biopics, given their recent release of each other. But like jukebox musicals, this starts out with a framing device of say, I'm at a concert, I'm famous, how did I get here? Let's flash back to my unhappy, uncaring childhood. This does put a very interesting spin on it, as a man in a bright orange cockerel suit struts into a drugs rehab help group and proclaims, I am Elton Hercules John, I am a drug addict, I am a sex addict, I am a shopping addict. How did I get here? Let's flash back to my unhappy, uncaring childhood. With said childhood, with his encouraging gran, his lyricist friend, and ultimately his uncaring, abusive manager, and the spiraling of drugs and obsession that nearly derailed him. Unlike Bohemian Rhapsody, this Rocketman was built up from the ground up to be a musical in the purest sense. And because this is all from the framework of Elton John's drugs rehab confession, his mind, this is the sort of movie where people will stop in the street to sing, or for child Elton to sing I Want Love, just a different kind, from his parents, for people to get into a brawl at a pub and sing Saturday Night's All Right for Fighting, and stuff like that, and for it to be normal. So very psychedelic sequences like lifting up from the ground with rocket shoes like a rocket man, seeing a little boy at the bottom of a swimming pool, all very well executed, all flawlessly paced. And Taron Egerton's central performance of Elton John. Yep, I think we've established this with previous movies like Sing and Eddie the Eagle. But not only is he a fine actor, but he's got a great pair of lungs on him, and he not only does he can. It's half that sort of stage musical thing of projecting to the back of the crowd, but also you see in his face the pain, the joy, the flamboyancy, and the troubled mind that is clearly Elton John's life. He carries dialogue like, people don't pay to see Reginald Dwight, they pay to see Elton John. Just write the lyrics, Bernie. I'm sorry I said that. It does a great job of portraying a conflicted soul here. Um, and yeah, the songs are great. Um, the uh, the supporting characters like Jamie Bell's sympathetic friend Bernie Taupin with the lyrics, and Richard Madden doing steely-eyed gaze as the John Reed, the manager. Also, and as a film about Elton John's life, I can assure you it does not hold back on the drug addiction, and it does not hold back on how flamboyant yet how much of um, a petulant tantrum raging sod that Elton John could be, and yet be sympathetic. And it does not skimp out on the gay sex, on his on his homosexuality, and on the naked bedroom gay sex. There's a full 5 minute bedroom sequence there to warn you in advance. But to see a movie like this come out this confident and assured about such subject matter as a mainstream musical movie, that has to be some kind of progress. That has to be some kind of achievement, and all credit to Dexter Fletcher for pulling this off. It does, in terms of Elton John's life, it does stop a little early. I mean, as a narrative about his addiction and all the troubles he went through and how he got through that, it ends on exactly the Elton John song that you expect it to. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And also, and it ends, and then there are captions about the rest of his life, which it does feel like, oh, this film has suddenly stopped. I would have liked to have seen more of that. But as a nitpick, that has to be a pretty positive one if you wanted more out of this. Rocketman is a confident, assured jukebox musical, and I do applaud it. It, like I say, ends rather quickly in terms of Elton John's, not quick, it ends soon in terms of Elton John's life, but the narrative it contains and the performances that carry it through are strong enough for me to give a very big buy it. So that was May. You're probably expecting me to give the recommendation of the month to Avengers Endgame, and all fair play, a lot of people will do that, and deservedly so. It's a movie that a lot of people were waiting for, and it does live up to those expectations. But I want to go out on a limb here and give a shout out to a movie that, because of its adult rating and content, might slip by some people, but for its musicality and its performances and the deft, sensitive handling of its subject, I do strongly urge people to give Rocketman a chance. I think, as musical movies go, Rocketman is one for the ages. So with that, let's hope if June can carry this momentum. In the meantime, I hope to see you again next time. Did you see these movies? Well, Avengers Endgame, I think there's a fairly strong chance of that. What did you think of these movies? Did you see any other movies, and what did you think of them? Comment down below about that, and please please like, please subscribe, please stay tuned to Matt's Movies, Music and More. I'll see you next time. In the meantime, I hope you continue to have a pleasant or endurable summer. In the meantime, peace out.